Alright guys, today we're going to look at reviewing the main concepts of Chapter 4, kind of in preparation for what's going to end up being an assessment. Guys, the assessments we're going to have going forward aren't going to look like a chapter test that we would have if we were in session. For the DLDs, I'm going to have to adjust how we kind of assess. I haven't set in stone what we're going to do there quite yet, but you guys can anticipate. I think what I'm going to end up making you guys do is kind of make your own test, okay? As well as making a test and making an answer key for that test. Where you're showing all of your work and everything like that in a neat and organized way. I haven't finalized that plan yet. I'm gonna take some time and try to make up something that's best for you guys, best for everyone. So don't hold me to that exactly, but that's kind of what we're looking for. I want to give you guys a little heads up. But anyway, we're gonna review in the same way we would in class. I'm gonna go through the main points that I want you guys to get out of Chapter 4. I know it's taken a few weeks to get to this point now, so some of this stuff is from way back, the graphing and the factoring for sure. So we need to refresh on that stuff. So let's go ahead and let's jump into this first graphing problem, guys. I'm gonna do the odds here. If you guys want to follow along, your assignment's gonna be the evens. You guys can do that, or you're welcome to do it on your own time and just pay attention to the ones I'm doing. That'd be fine as well. So graphing, guys, again, we want to identify A, B, and C. And we're doing that so that for our first step, finding the axis of symmetry, where we use negative B over 2A, we can substitute in A and B here. So negative B, so negative 2 over 2 times A negative 1. So guys, that's positive 2 on top over negative 2 on bottom. The axis of symmetry is at negative 1. All right. Guys, the axis of symmetry, that's that line that cuts our parabola in half. The points reflect across it, so that's why we start with that. Then the second step is finding the vertex, guys, which is the point that's on the axis of symmetry, the point of the parabola on the axis of symmetry. So what we do here, we take our equation and we substitute in negative 1 for x. And what have we got? We've got, that'll be negative 1 squared is positive 1, but then times the negative outside of it. So negative 1 plus 2 plus 3. So that should be 4. The y value there is 4. So negative 1, 4. That is our vertex. We plot that point. And the third step is, I'm going to write it up here. I'm kind of out of sequence here. Making your t-chart. And so if I did have you guys putting the vertex kind of in the middle of that t-chart, and then we're just going to plug in the points that are around it. So around that axis of symmetry, negative 1. So what, 0 and positive 1 would be good numbers to plug in. And then those will reflect to negative 2 and negative 3. I'll show you that reflection in just a moment. So let's substitute in 0 now. So I'm going to do that down here towards the bottom. Y equals, so what, that'd be negative 0 squared minus 2 times 0 plus 3. 0 squared is just 0. 2 times 0 is 0. So that's y equals 3. So 0, 3 is a point on the graph. Guys, that's going to reflect across to negative 2, 3. Okay, so we're starting to get an idea of where this parabola is headed. Okay, so then we're going to plug in 1 as well. I'm going to do that down here as well. There, I plugged in 0. I'll plug in 1 here. So negative, and then it'll be 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 3. So this is negative 1 minus 2 plus 3, because that's equal to 0. So 1, 0 is a point on this graph. And that reflects to negative 3, 0. All right. And so that's graphing a parabola. All right, that one opened down. The a value is negative, that's why it opens down. The other one should open up. All right, next main lesson here, solve by factoring. Guys, so if it's one that you can factor, you're going to, so if it doesn't have a coefficient, the coefficient's 1, all you're going to do is look for numbers that multiply to that last number, or the constant, and then add to the middle, or the coefficient of x, so 2. So guys, if they're going to multiply to a negative, they've got to have opposite signs. Adding to a positive, the bigger number needs to be positive. So this would end up being 8 and negative 6. They multiply to 48, negative 48, they add to positive 2. So this factors to x, it's a positive 8, x minus 6, okay? We factor it because now we can set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. X, apologize, a little too quick there. So we x minus 6 equals 0. Adding 6 to both sides, we've got x equals 6. So this quadratic has two solutions, negative 8 and positive 6. Okay? I think I've got one here for you guys to factor. Okay, on to the next page. A couple more factoring ones, guys. These ones, the coefficient is not 1. So this was a different type of factoring. Okay, box method was the way I think we most preferred. I showed a handful of people grouping, but box method was the most common method. So that's how I'll do this one. To factor a box method problem, your first step is to multiply the leading coefficient by the constant. So 2 times negative, writing my answer down, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. So when you make your factor table, or your times plus chart as some call it, you're going to look for numbers that multiply to negative 10, and you're still going to want them to add to that positive 9, that middle, that coefficient of v there. All right, so guess here we would have a positive 10 and a negative 1. Okay, those multiply to negative 10, they add to 9. Cool. So once you have those numbers, this is called the box method because you create this box. Okay, your first term, 2v squared, goes in the top left box. Your last term, negative 5, goes in the bottom right box. Okay, the two factors you just found, 10 and negative 1, those go in the remaining two boxes. It does not matter which box it goes in, but they need to have a variable with them. Okay, now what you're going to do, start at the bottom right and move to the left. Find the GCF of those two terms. 10v and negative 5, well, that will be 5. Okay, that'll be a positive 5. 2v squared and 1v, or negative 1v, that'll be 1v. 2v squared and 10v would be a 2v, and then negative 5 and negative 1v. As this outside box is negative, so it's going to be a negative 1. Okay? And so that's what your two factors are. 2v minus 1 is one of your factors, and that'll be a v, and a positive 5 will be your other factor. Okay, just like the last problem now, we'll set them equal to 0, and we'll solve for our variable. So one of our solutions here, v equals 1/2. Our other solution, v equals negative 5. Okay. And the last type of problem, because I know we did some things with um, originally understanding the imaginary unit, and we did some things with completing the square. Guys, those were just leading us to that quadratic formula lesson. So I'm not going to hold you guys too accountable for the completing the square, because that's hopefully you guys got the understanding when we went through that quadratic formula lesson that comes directly from completing the square. And what I needed you guys to know about imaginary numbers is that they exist, okay? And we can use them to simplify negative square roots, okay? So that was really the takeaway, which all gets combined into that last lesson we just did yesterday, the 4.6 lesson, where quadratic formula with imaginary solutions. So that's why I think just having these couple problems is sufficient, okay? So using the quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So it's as easy as identifying a, b, and c and plugging them in. Guys, do make sure they're all equal to 0 before you start. I kind of sometimes forget to announce that, but I know I have said that a few times, so make sure you are being sure of that. So a is 10, b is negative 9, c is 1. So solving this is x equals negative b, so negative 9, plus or minus b squared, so negative 9 squared minus 4 times a is 10 times c is 1. Okay, all over 2 times a 10. All right, so simplifying negative 9 is going to be a positive 9. 9 plus or minus 81 minus 4 times 10, 40. All over 20. So this is x equals 9 plus or minus square root of 41 all over 20. Guys, on these quadratic formula problems, if your radical is reduced, let's just leave our answer in reduced form. So everything's reduced there, guys. The square root of 41 isn't going to simplify. But yeah, that's solving using the quadratic formula. All right, guys, number 8. Looks like a pretty simple one. You might even be tempted to try to factor it. It is not factorable. This one has no real solutions. So this one you will have imaginary solutions. So just wanted to leave you with that because I know we hadn't done one today. We did those yesterday. This one has imaginary solutions. So go ahead, make sure you take care of that one. All right, guys, any questions today, we'll use those discussions, and then we'll use that again on our White Day Friday. So thanks for watching today. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon.